When I picked up the phone that Friday evening to ask my son Michael what time I should arrive for Maya's 7th birthday dinner, my daughter-in-law Kiana didn't even blink. She looked me straight in the eyes, standing in my living room like she owned the place, and said, "Oh, Miss Gloria, the party was yesterday. We only invited our closest people." Closest people. Her words sliced through me like a cold blade. I, who had paid 6 months of Maya's daycare, bought every pair of sneakers, backpacks, birthday dresses. I, whose refrigerator fed them more than their own fridge ever did. I was not closest people. Behind her, Michael looked at the floor, avoiding my eyes the way a guilty child stares at his shoes. Upstairs, in my closet, hung the mint green dress I bought for the party, the one Maya had picked out herself. Next to it lay the puzzle set, the sparkling shoes, the birthday card I wrote with trembling hands. Kiana smirked and added, "It was a small, intimate dinner at the Magnolia House. Family only." And with that, the floor under me vanished. Welcome to Life Voices, where family drama turns into late-life justice. If you're watching, tell us your city in the comments, we always read them. That night, after they walked out of my house like nothing happened, I sat on the edge of my bed holding the mint green dress in my hands. I kept staring at the tiny butterflies Maya loved so much, running my fingers over the soft fabric. I had imagined her spinning in it, laughing, asking me, "Grandma, do I look pretty?" Instead, she wore it for a celebration I didn't even know existed until it was over. I finally turned on my phone. And there it was, the notification I hadn't wanted to see. Kiana's Instagram story. A long video of a crowded restaurant in uptown Charlotte. A fancy dinner table covered in pink balloons and confetti. A custom cake with Maya's name written in shiny gold icing. 30, maybe 40 guests. I froze when I saw who sat at the center table. Kiana's mother in a bright red dress. Her father at the end, carving the roast. Her sisters, laughing, clinking champagne glasses. Her church friends, her co-workers, her neighbor, even her hairdresser. Everyone except me. I watched Maya blow out her candles while half the room cheered. I watched the children dance around the table. I watched Kiana's family take group photos with the words, "Family Forever," written across the screen. But nowhere, was there a place for the woman who had paid for Maya's daycare. Maya's school supplies, Maya's birthday presents, the shoes on her feet, the medical copay for her ear infection, the rent when Michael was between jobs. My chest tightened. It wasn't about not being invited to a party. It was about being erased. The next morning, I didn't receive even a text. Not one, "Sorry," not one, "We forgot," not one explanation. Only silence. But 7 days later, exactly 7 days after they excluded me, my phone rang at 8:12 a.m. The name, Kiana, flashed across my screen. I knew instantly what the call was about. Debt, money, help. I answered anyway. "Miss Gloria," she said, suddenly sounding gentle, almost scared. The daycare called. "Maya's tuition is overdue. They said if we don't pay by Friday, she might lose her spot. You forgot to send the transfer." Forgot, as if I were her personal assistant. As if paying their bills had always been my responsibility. I breathed in slowly. "Kiana," I said, keeping my voice calm, "didn't I tell you last week? I only help my closest people?" Silence. A deep, shocked silence. "Miss Gloria, what do you mean?" she asked, voice trembling. "We are your family." I waited. She added quickly, "You're like a second mom to me." That was a lie she pulled out only when the bills were due. For 3 full years, I let myself believe that lie. I paid quietly, hoping it would buy me a seat at the table, a piece of love, a moment of gratitude. I thought generosity meant closeness. I thought sacrifice meant belonging. But Kiana had proven in one night how wrong I was. "We love you," she whispered. We didn't think you'd want to be around too many people." "Your blood pressure?" My jaw clenched. This was the new line. They had switched from, "your family," to, "you're old," in a single breath. "Kiana," I said, "you made your choice the day you celebrated Maya without me. But we need you," she blurted out. There it was, the truth under everything. Need, not love. I hung up before she could say another word. That afternoon, for the first time in months, I did something just for myself. I walked around the neighborhood, noticing dogwood trees blooming on every corner. I stopped by a cafe I hadn't visited since Michael and Kiana's emergencies took over my life. I sat, drank my coffee, and watched families walk by. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Stillness, my own company, my own thoughts. Later that evening, I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I had written dozens of checks for them, and pulled out my bank statements. I began calculating everything I had spent on them during the past 3 years. Daycare, $600 a month times 6 months equals $3,600. Groceries, $250 a month times 36 equals $9,000. School clothes, shoes, and uniforms, $3,500. After-school activities, $2,200. Michael's dental bill, $1,100. Kiana's emergency car repair, $1,800. Rent support during Michael's job gap, $7,200. Holiday and birthday gifts, $2,800. Total, $31,200. $31,200. Money I had taken from my retirement savings, from the account my late husband and I built over decades of hard work. And for what? To be erased from my own granddaughter's life. To be left out of her birthday photos like I had never existed. I closed my checkbook. A cold clarity settled over me. This wasn't love. It was dependency. It was manipulation. It was entitlement dressed up as family. I whispered aloud, to no one. Never again. Later that night, the doorbell rang. When I checked the peephole, my heart stopped. Michael's car, Kiana's car, and a third car I didn't recognize, a silver Lexus. 3 silhouettes stood on my porch. They weren't here to apologize. I could feel that in my bones. They were here because I had finally become dangerous to them. Not because I had changed into someone cruel, but because I had finally woken up. I didn't open the door right away. I stood there, holding my breath, watching their silhouettes shift in the porch light. Michael paced back and forth like a man with no plan, no control, no ground left beneath his feet. Kiana kept adjusting her hair, her purse strap, her sleeves, every nervous habit she had. The third person, whoever sat in that Lexus, stood perfectly still. Too still. Something was wrong. I finally unlocked the door but left the chain on. "Who's with you?" I asked sharply. Michael swallowed hard. "Mom, can we come in? We need to talk." "No, you can talk from right there." Kiana tried to peek inside, her voice suddenly sweet. "Miss Gloria, we didn't come to fight. We're just worried." "Who is with you?" I repeated. Michael stepped aside, revealing a tall man in a gray suit, mid-50s, expensive haircut, polished shoes, and a leather briefcase. He smiled the way men do when they want to sell you something without letting you know they're selling it. "Mrs. Bennett," he said smoothly. "My name is Mr. Lawson. I'm a family law attorney. Your son and daughter-in-law asked me to speak with you." My stomach dropped. Of course they brought a lawyer. Because to them, I wasn't family. I wasn't a woman with a broken heart. I was a problem, a wallet that had closed. "No," I said, my voice steady. "You have no business here." Michael raised his voice. "Mom, stop. We're trying to help you. You've been acting strange lately." Strange. That word hit me harder than anything Kiana had ever said. Kiana clasped her hands together. "We're just worried you can't manage things alone anymore." I stared at them, my own son, standing there rehearsing lines I knew came straight from Kiana's mouth. They looked like two actors performing in a play called How to Make Mom Look Crazy. Mr. Lawson opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of papers. "Mrs. Bennett," he said calmly, "your children are concerned that you may be experiencing cognitive decline. They believe it may be in your best interest to temporarily assign them power of attorney to help you make financial decisions." Cognitive decline, power of attorney, best interest. I felt the room tilt, but I held the doorframe until everything steadied. "Sir," I said quietly, "I'm not your client. And you're trespassing," he continued, unbothered. "Michael and Kiana informed me that you've stopped paying essential bills. They also say you've become isolated, paranoid, and—" I stopped him cold. "Isolated? Paranoid?" I laughed, sharp, bitter. "You mean I stopped paying your bills? And now suddenly something must be wrong with me?" Michael stepped forward, anger flickering in his eyes. "This isn't about money. Yes, I said. It is exactly about money. Every dollar of it. Kiana raised her chin. Miss Gloria, Maya needs stability. We all do. And if you're going through something. Going through something? I echoed. Yes. I'm going through the realization that I've raised a man who can't stand on his own 2 feet. Michael's face twisted in embarrassment. Mom, we're not leaving until we talk. Oh, you're leaving, I said. And I closed the door. They started banging immediately. Michael's voice, angry. Kiana's voice, tearful. The lawyer's voice, calm and manipulative. But I didn't open it. After 20 minutes of pounding, shouting, and forced concern, they finally left. Or so I thought. 2 hours later, I found out I was wrong. The next morning, as I walked to my mailbox, my neighbor Mrs. Coleman waved me over. She was a petite woman in her 70s, always gardening, always watching the neighborhood like a hawk. Gloria, honey, she said softly, are you all right? Yes, I told her. Why? She blinked, hesitant. I saw your son and his wife last night, talking to Mr. Davis across the street. My heart sank. Mr. Davis, the neighborhood gossip machine, a man who loved trouble more than peace. Mrs. Coleman continued, they were asking him questions about you. If you're confused, if you leave your lights on, if you misplace things. My hands went cold, and he was nodding, she whispered. Of course he was. He hated that my friends parked near his driveway. He'd say anything to cause problems. I thanked her and went back inside. I locked the door, sat on my couch, and felt my lungs tighten. Michael and Kiana weren't panicking. They were preparing, building a case, collecting witnesses, trying to paint me as unstable so they could take control of my finances. I stood up, grabbed my purse, and drove straight to the law office of Mr. Samuel Carter, the estate attorney who had handled my husband's will years ago. A kind man with silver hair and serious eyes. He looked up as soon as I entered. Mrs. Bennet, he said. It's been a long time. What brings you here? I exhaled shakily. My son is trying to take my life away. He didn't interrupt. He didn't judge. He simply said, sit down, start from the beginning. And I did. I told him everything, the birthday dinner, the Instagram videos, the sudden sweetness, the daycare bill, the appearance of Mr. Lawson, the threats, the accusations, the attempts to make me look incompetent. Mr. Carter listened carefully, taking notes. When I finished, he closed his notebook slowly. Mrs. Bennet, he said, this is a classic case of elder financial exploitation. What they attempted last night is extremely serious. He leaned forward. You did the right thing by coming here. And I will help you. For the first time in weeks, I felt the faintest light inside me. We will document everything, he continued. We will prepare a protection plan. And we will make sure your son cannot legally access a single dollar without your consent. I nodded, feeling tears press behind my eyes. Thank you, I whispered. Don't thank me yet, he said. They won't stop after one failed attempt. They will try again. I knew he was right. Michael and Kiana were not finished. They would come back, with more lies, more pressure, more manipulation. But for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid. I was ready. Mr. Carter immediately began laying out the steps. First, he said, we secure your accounts. We remove every digital connection to Michael or Kiana, phone numbers, emails, shared access, everything. Then we change passwords, establish dual authentication, and create a private trust so your funds cannot be touched without your direct approval. He handed me a tissue when my hands started to shake. And second, he added, we gather proof. Every receipt, every transfer you made for them, every message, every call log. The more detailed the timeline, the harder it is for them to twist the story. I nodded, breathing deeply. And third? His eyes hardened a little. We prepare for a fight. Because I promise you, Mrs. Bennet, they are preparing for one too. That afternoon, after leaving Mr. Carter's office, I drove straight to the bank. My legs felt heavy, but my determination was stronger. When I walked in, the young teller looked up with a polite smile. How can I help you, ma'am? I need to speak with the branch manager, I said. Mr. Coleman, the manager, had known me for years. He often joked that I kept my account more organized than most 20-year-olds. When he saw my face, his smile faded. Mrs. Bennet, are you all right? I need to secure my accounts, I told him firmly. Immediately. He didn't ask unnecessary questions. Maybe he saw the fear, or maybe he sensed the urgency. Within minutes we were in his office, going through every account line by line. He pointed to a recent transaction. This automatic transfer to your son, monthly? Cancel it. And this recurring payment to the daycare under your name? Cancel that too. He hesitated. And the credit card you co-signed for your daughter-in-law? I clenched my jaw. Remove me. He typed quickly, efficiently, but gently. An hour later, everything was done. My accounts were private. My money was protected. My digital access was secured. But the feeling wasn't relief. It was something heavier, something like mourning. Mourning the woman I used to be, the one who believed love could be bought with sacrifice. When I got home, the silence in my house felt different. It wasn't peaceful. It was dense, like the air before a storm. I noticed something on my porch immediately, a business card wedged under the welcome mat. I picked it up. Law Office of Gregory R. Lawson. Family Mediation and Guardianship Solutions. Guardianship. The word twisted my stomach. This wasn't about a misunderstanding. This wasn't about a birthday dinner. They wanted control. They wanted legal power over me. They wanted my money. I exhaled slowly, trying to steady myself. I didn't know whether to scream or cry. But before I could decide, a knock sounded at my back door. I froze. No one ever knocked there. When I peeked through the blinds, I saw my neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, the retired teacher who'd lived 2 houses down for almost 20 years. Gloria, she whispered when I opened the door. I didn't want to come to the front. He's still watching. He meant Mr. Davis. Of course he was watching. I invited her in. She stepped inside with a concerned look. Your son and his wife were at his house again today, she said quietly. They were asking him to write something. I don't know what exactly, but he kept rubbing his hands together the way he does when he wants money. My breath hitched. Bribery, manipulation, desperation. They were building a case. Mrs. Thompson squeezed my hand. Sweetheart, if you need anything, anything at all, you just call me. After she left, I locked every door and window. For the first time in my life, I was afraid of my own child. The next morning, I had an appointment with Mr. Carter again. He had asked me to bring all documentation, receipts, bank records, text messages, printouts. My dining table looked like a battlefield of paper. Halfway through organizing, my phone buzzed. Michael. I stared at the screen, debating whether to decline. But something inside me said, answer. Let him speak. Let him reveal who he really is. I picked up. Mom, he said, too soft, too careful. We need to talk. No, I said calmly. You need money. Silence, then a sigh. Yeah, he admitted. We're behind this month. The daycare. I'm aware. Mom, please, he said, voice rising. We can't keep going like this. You can't just cut us off. Yes, I said, I can. What happened to you? He snapped. You were never like this. Because I had never said no. Mom, he said again, frustration sharpening into something darker. We've been talking to people. Professionals, they said. I know exactly who you've been talking to, I cut in. And I know exactly what you're planning. He paused. Then he said the most painful thing my own child had ever said to me. Maybe you shouldn't be living alone. Maybe you're not thinking clearly. My heart cracked, but I didn't let him hear it. I am thinking more clearly than I ever have, I replied. He exhaled through his nose. That angry sound men make when they're losing control. You're going to regret this, he muttered. Don't make us do something drastic. Michael, I said quietly, you already have. I ended the call before he could respond. At Mr. Carter's office, he reviewed everything I brought. After an hour, he sat back in his chair. This is more serious than I expected, he said. Your son is attempting to establish a pattern of incompetence. If he succeeds, he could file for guardianship. And depending on the judge, he might have a chance. A chill ran through me. What do we do? I asked. Mr. Carter opened a folder. We fight back. First, I want you to undergo a full psychiatric evaluation from a certified specialist. Not because I doubt you, because courts trust documentation. If you have proof that you are mentally sound, their case collapses. I nodded slowly. Okay. Second, he continued, we gather witnesses on your side. Neighbors, friends, anyone who can testify to your clarity and independence. Faces flashed through my mind. Mrs. Coleman, Mrs. Thompson, the ladies from the senior center, my church friends. Third, he said, we prepare a restraining order. That way, if they show up again or attempt further intimidation, we involve the police. My chest tightened, but I nodded. This was no longer a family argument. It was a war my own child had started. And a war one had no choice but to finish. When I left his office, the sky above Charlotte was turning orange with sunset. The air felt heavy, like the world was holding its breath. And so was I, because deep down, I knew. Michael and Kiana were not finished. Far from it, they were just getting started. The next morning felt strangely calm, like the quiet that settles over a battlefield before the enemy charges again. I made my coffee, sat at the table where I'd written checks for years, and looked around my kitchen. For the first time, I wondered, what did my son see when he looked at me? A mother, or just a wallet that cooked? At 9 o'clock sharp, my phone buzzed with a message from Mr. Carter. Dr. Moore can see you at 2:30 p.m. today. Full cognitive evaluation. This is good, very good. I replied with a simple thank you. Just as I set my phone down, the doorbell rang. I froze. My cameras showed two people, one older white man in a gray suit, holding a leather briefcase, and behind him, a woman in scrubs holding a clipboard. My heart dropped. They sent a doctor, a private evaluator. They wanted a fake exam. They wanted proof I was incompetent. I didn't open the door. I cracked the window instead. Yes? I asked sharply. Mrs. Bennett? The man asked, forcing a kind smile. I'm Dr. Harold Simmons. Your son and daughter-in-law asked me to perform a wellness evaluation today. It's just a routine check. No, I said, loud and clear. Ma'am, it would be in your best interest to. No, I repeated. I already have my attorney and a scheduled evaluation with a licensed geriatric psychiatrist. The nurse stepped forward. Mrs. Bennett, refusing an exam could be seen as noncompliance. It may be. Illegal? I asked. Because you're trespassing. You have no court order, no authorization, and no invitation. They exchanged a glance. I pulled out my phone. I'm calling my lawyer, I said loudly, and then the police. The fake evaluation squad backed away instantly, the man nearly stumbling on my porch step. Very well, ma'am, he muttered stiffly. We'll note your refusal. Do that, I said. And make sure you also note that you had no legal authority to be here. They walked off quickly, but not before I snapped a picture of their car and plates. I forwarded it to Mr. Carter with one sentence. They sent people to evaluate me without consent. His response came 10 seconds later. I'm filing an emergency motion. This is new evidence of coercion. Saved us 6 months of work. Stay inside. Do not engage. I sat down slowly. My son, my baby, he wasn't just trying to get my money. He was trying to erase me as a person. At 1:45 p.m., I drove to Dr. Moore's office, a modern building with floor-to-ceiling windows, soft piano music in the lobby, and a receptionist who smiled warmly. Mrs. Gloria Bennett, Dr. Moore is ready for you. Dr. Moore was a black woman in her mid-50s with soft curls, dark-rimmed glasses, and the kind of presence that made you feel safe, even when you were falling apart. Come in, Mrs. Bennett, she said gently. I've reviewed the preliminary notes from Mr. Carter. Let's take our time today. No rush. For 2 hours, she tested everything. Memory, attention, reasoning, financial comprehension, spatial awareness, emotional stability, executive functioning. She asked about my daily routine, my finances, my medical history, my relationships. She even gave me a few complex puzzles and logic problems. At the end, she sat back, folded her hands, and smiled. Mrs. Bennett, she said, you have one of the sharpest minds I've seen in a woman your age. Your cognitive functioning is excellent. Tears rose behind my eyes. You're completely capable of managing your life and your finances, she continued. You're not confused. You're not declining. You're not impaired. You're simply setting boundaries after years of exploitation. A tear slipped down my cheek. Is that in your report? I whispered. She nodded. And more, she said. Much more. She slid a sealed envelope toward me. This report will protect you in court. And I'll testify if needed. My hands shook as I took it. Thank you, I whispered. From the bottom of my heart. She smiled warmly. You're stronger than you think, Mrs. Bennett. You're doing the right thing. When I got home, the sun was low, painting the sky gold. I stepped out of my car with a strange feeling, almost peace. Until I heard it, a car door slam, then another. I turned. 2 cars stopped right in front of my house. Michael's silver Altima, Kiana's navy Toyota, both of them getting out fast, too fast. My heart thudded painfully, but something else happened. My security cameras lit up. And before I could panic, Mrs. Thompson came out of her house like she'd been waiting. Back away from her property, she shouted across the street. Michael froze. Kiana swung toward her angrily. She's our family. We just want to talk. Mrs. Thompson crossed her arms. Funny, because all week you've been talking. To lawyers, to neighbors, to evaluators, to anyone willing to lie about your own mother. Michael's face twisted with embarrassment and rage. Mind your business, he snapped. I am, she said. Because Gloria is my friend. And if you take one step onto her porch, I'm calling the police myself. Before they could respond, another voice joined in. Same here. It was Mr. Coleman from down the street. Then Miss Carla from the corner house. Then Mr. and Mrs. Rivera across the road. In less than 30 seconds, 5 of my neighbors stood outside, watching, ready. A wall between me and the 2 people who should have protected me most. Michael looked shocked. He wasn't used to anyone defending me. He wasn't used to anyone telling him no. Mom, he growled, eyes locking on me. This isn't right. You're letting outsiders get in your head. No, I said quietly. I'm letting the truth in. Kiana pointed a shaking finger at me. You owe us answers. You owe us support. You owe us. I raised my hand. I don't owe you a single thing. My voice was steady, cold, final. Michael stepped back like I'd slapped him. You'll regret this, he whispered. No, I said, for the first time in years. I won't. They both got back into their cars, angry, humiliated, furious, but they didn't step onto my porch. Because they finally realized something. I wasn't alone anymore, and I wasn't afraid, not of them, not of the courts, not of losing what I never truly had. As their engines faded into the distance, Mrs. Thompson came over and squeezed my hand. You did good, baby, she whispered. You stood your ground. For the first time that day, I let myself breathe. The next 3 weeks became a strange blend of calm and chaos. Calm, because my home finally felt like mine again. I cooked when I wanted, slept without fear, watered my plants, and even started a little morning walking routine with Mrs. Thompson. Chaos, because Michael and Kiana were not done. Not by a long shot. Every time I checked my cameras, their car passed slowly down the street. Sometimes Michael drove, sometimes Kiana. Sometimes both of them were in the car, whispering angrily. They stopped texting me, but they didn't stop watching. Mr. Carter told me to keep logging everything. Patterns matter, he said. Courts take stalking seriously. Harassment shows intent. So I kept my notebook by the door and wrote down date, time, car make, car color, direction. It felt ridiculous, almost childish, but also empowering. It was proof. Proof that I wasn't imagining things. Proof that I wasn't confused like they claimed. Proof that the ones acting irrational were the 2 adults who had depended on my retirement savings to stay afloat. On the following Monday, Mr. Carter called. We received notice, he said. Notice for what? They filed, he replied calmly. A full petition for legal guardianship over you. The words didn't shock me this time. They just drained me. They claim you're mentally declining, he continued. That you're isolating yourself, that you're refusing medical treatment, that you're being influenced by outsiders. They even claimed you forgot to pay your own electric bill. I did pay it, I said flatly. We know, he replied. And we have the receipt. Every lie they listed, we have a counter-proof. I sank into my sofa. They're using your age against you, he added. They think the court will assume a 72-year-old woman is fragile. They are betting that the judge will believe them. I swallowed hard. Fear tried to creep back in, but something inside me pushed it down. What do we do next? I asked. We build our case, he said. And we fight. That week, Mr. Carter and his assistant helped gather sworn statements from my friends, neighbors, pharmacists, church members, anyone who knew me well. Mrs. Thompson testified that I was mentally sharp and socially active. Mr. Coleman testified that I independently painted my fence last summer. Mrs. Rivera, who lived across the street, testified that she saw Michael and Kiana visit only when they needed something. Even the pharmacist, Mr. Green, wrote a detailed statement explaining how Kiana had tricked him into signing a misleading document. Every truth made my heart a little lighter. But every truth also revealed how much they had lied. 3 days before the court hearing, something unexpected happened. A knock at my door, soft, hesitant. When I checked the camera, I froze. It was Maya, my granddaughter, 7 years old, the child whose birthday they celebrated without me. She stood there with a tiny backpack, holding a stuffed rabbit by the ear. Her big brown eyes were confused and tearful. I opened the door slowly and knelt. "Maya, baby, what are you doing here?" She sniffled. "Daddy and Mommy, they said they needed to go talk to people. They told me to go to Grandma's house. They were yelling in the car." My throat tightened. "Did they knock?" I asked gently. She shook her head. "They just dropped me off and drove away." Dropped her off like a package. Anger simmered under my skin, hot, sharp, protective. I led her inside. "Are you hungry?" She nodded. I made her a grilled cheese sandwich, the way she liked, with the crusts cut off. She ate quietly, glancing at me every few seconds like she was checking if she was allowed to look. After she finished, she whispered, "Grandma, why don't I see you anymore? Did I do something wrong?" The words hit me like a punch. "No, baby," I said, pulling her close. "You didn't do anything wrong." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "Mommy said, you're tired all the time. And Daddy said, you don't want to help anymore." I almost broke down. I almost cried right there. But instead, I stroked her hair and said, "Sometimes grown-ups say things when they're upset. But you and me, we're okay. I love you. I always love you." When Michael and Kiana finally returned, 2 hours later, red-faced and irritated, they didn't even apologize for leaving her with me without notice. Kiana crossed her arms. "Good, you kept her fed," she snapped. "We're busy. Court stuff. You made this harder than it had to be." Mr. Carter's voice echoed in my mind. "Document everything." I kept my jaw shut, said nothing, and walked Maya to the door to say goodbye. She squeezed me tight. "Grandma, I miss you." "I miss you too," I whispered. They drove away without another word. And I realized something painful. Maya's love was real, but her parents were weaponizing her. And once again, I had to protect myself. Even from the people tied to my blood. 2 days later, the night before the court hearing, I barely slept. Every fear I had tried to bury resurfaced. What if the judge believed them? What if they twisted the truth better than we could prove it? What if they took control of my life? I walked around the house at midnight, touching the things that were still mine. My husband's framed photo, my mother's quilt, my book collection, my spice rack, my independence. I refused to lose it all. At dawn, I stood in front of the mirror and looked at myself long and hard. I didn't see a frail old woman. I didn't see someone confused or manipulated. I saw a woman who had survived heartbreak, widowhood, motherhood, and now betrayal. A woman worth fighting for. That morning, I put on my navy blue suit, pressed and neat. Mrs. Thompson drove me to the courthouse so I wouldn't be alone. Her hand rested on mine the whole ride. When we arrived, Mr. Carter met us in the hallway. "You ready?" he asked. "Yes," I said, and I meant it. He smiled. "Good, because they're not." Across the hall, I saw Michael and Kiana with their lawyer, dressed like the perfect, concerned family. But when Michael met my eyes, something flickered in his. Not victory, fear, because he finally understood. I wasn't here to beg. I was here to win. And I was done letting anyone treat me like anything less than the woman I had always been. Strong, clear-minded, and finally free. Judge Harris returned after 40 long minutes. Everyone stood. Her voice was steady, firm, unshakable. After reviewing all evidence, testimony, and professional evaluations, this court finds no indication that Mrs. Gloria Bennett is mentally incompetent. The petition for guardianship is denied in full. Kiana gasped. Michael stared at the floor, jaw tight, fists clenched, defeated. The judge continued. Furthermore, any continued harassment or coercion toward Mrs. Bennett will result in immediate protective orders. This court will not tolerate attempts to exploit an elder for financial gain. Her gavel struck. Freedom echoed in that sound. Outside the courtroom, Michael tried to speak. "Mom, please, we can fix this." No, I said softly. You made your choice. I walked past him without looking back. 3 months later, I moved to a sunny apartment in South Charlotte, joined a women's group, traveled, painted, lived. I never heard from them again. But I gained something far more valuable. My life back. Subscribe for more emotional family stories. Speech balloon share in the comments. Have you ever lived through something similar? Red heart, your story matters here.